We all love a good deal. There is just this undeniable thrill in scoring a trendy new outfit for literally the price of a cup of coffee. But in today's Explainer, we're going on an investigative journey right into the dark side of our own closets. We're going to look at the hard data, the history, and the frankly shocking environmental footprint of the clothes we wear every single day. We're breaking down exactly how the fashion industry morphed into a global environmental crisis, and more importantly, how we can actually fix it.
To understand the scale of this, you have to consider the bizarre reality hiding right now in satellite imagery of the Atacama Desert down in Chile. This is the driest desert on Earth. In fact, NASA literally tests its Mars rovers here because the landscape is so utterly alien and lifeless. But if you zoom in on those satellite images, you don't just see sand. You see colossal, unnatural mountains. And these aren't geological formations, they are mountains of discarded clothing. So why on earth are millions of garments just piling up in a pristine desert?
Well, the answer is fast fashion. And the sheer scale is almost hard to wrap your head around. Every single year, an astonishing 39,000 tons of unwanted clothing are dumped straight into the Atacama. The global supply of discarded, low-quality fashion from the Western world has become so massive that it literally has nowhere else to go. Which brings us to the burning question: how did we even get here? How did our relationship with clothes become so completely disposable that we're out here burying deserts in them?
The crazy thing is, this didn't happen by accident. It was a calculated acceleration. Pre-1975, the fashion industry moved at a fairly normal pace. You had a summer collection, you had a winter collection. It took about 6 months for a design to hit store shelves. But then in 1975, Zara completely changed the model. They figured out how to get designs into stores in just 15 days, creating 52 micro-seasons a year. Basically a new collection every week. Other brands copied it, and boom, fast fashion was born. But today, technology has supercharged this into ultra-fast fashion. Using AI to just scrape internet trends, companies like Shein have a turnaround time of literally 3 days from design to production, adding 10,000 new styles to their site every single day.
Because of this hyper-accelerated system, the sheer volume of stuff we're dealing with is just staggering. The world now produces up to 150 billion garments every single year. Let that sink in for a second. That is enough clothing produced annually to give every single man, woman, and child on planet Earth 14 brand new pieces of clothing every single year.
So we're now facing this stark, almost absurd contrast. On one hand, our current global supply means there are enough clothes already existing in the world right now to dress the next 6 generations of humanity. But on the other hand, look at our actual usage. On average, a fast fashion garment is worn only 7 to 10 times before it's just thrown away. In some places, 41% of clothes are tossed after just 1 or 2 wears. So we really have to ask ourselves, are we doing this by choice, or are we being manipulated into this endless cycle of hyperconsumption?
The uncomfortable truth is, the fast fashion industry has essentially weaponized psychology against us. They trigger our FOMO, that fear of missing out, by constantly rotating those micro-seasons. If you don't buy it right now, it's gone next week. Then you get that massive dopamine hit from snagging a shockingly cheap deal. Brands are also spending billions funding influencer haul videos to glamorize massive overconsumption. There are literally 25 billion views for Shein hauls on TikTok alone. But maybe the most toxic tactic of all dates back to a 1932 marketing book called Consumer Engineering, which coined the term artificial obsolescence. The whole goal is to make you feel like your perfectly good clothes are suddenly out of style. They've literally manufactured this bizarre sense of shame around outfit repeating.
And this isn't just a fun metaphor. Dr. Anna Lembke, a psychiatrist from Stanford University, points out that the way we shop online today actively mimics a chemical addiction. We aren't just buying a t-shirt anymore. We're chasing a neurological reward. The industry has literally rewired our brains to crave the constant novelty of new trends, and they've turned shopping into a highly addictive, incredibly normalized drug.
But this psychological manipulation has some very real, very devastating physical consequences. Today, over 60% of our clothes are made from synthetic plastics. We're talking materials like polyester, nylon, and acrylic. And the devastating reality here is that every single time we wash these clothes, they shed. Synthetic clothing laundry alone is responsible for a massive 35% of all oceanic microplastic pollution. Every year, the equivalent of 50 billion plastic bottles worth of microscopic plastic fibers flows straight out of our laundry machines and into the ocean.
And here's where it gets truly terrifying. Actually, scratch that. They aren't just staying in the ocean. They're coming right back to us. Scientists are now finding fashion's microplastic pollution hidden inside our own bodies. They've been discovered deeply embedded in human lung tissue, flowing through our bloodstreams, accumulating in our livers and kidneys, and incredibly, they've even been found in human breast milk and the placentas of unborn babies. Fast fashion has literally breached our biology, carrying serious risks of DNA damage and potential links to cancer.
Now you might be thinking, okay, I'll just stick to natural fibers. Surely cotton is better, right? Well, consider the staggering environmental cost of conventional cotton. It takes 2,700 liters of water to produce just one single t-shirt. That's enough drinking water to sustain one human being for 2.5 years. This completely insatiable thirst for water is exactly what destroyed the Aral Sea in Central Asia. It used to be the world's 4th largest lake, surrounded by thriving forests and fishing communities, and it was completely drained to fuel cotton farming. Today, it's just a toxic desert blowing carcinogenic dust into nearby villages.
And the water that the industry doesn't absolutely consume, it destroys. The fashion industry is responsible for a jaw-dropping 20% of global industrial water pollution. Take Tirupur in India, which is a massive garment export hub. The local Noyal River there has been turned into a toxic, lifeless sewer because clothing factories have just been dumping millions of liters of chemical dye and wastewater directly into it, completely destroying the surrounding groundwater and farmland.
And the scale of this environmental damage extends straight into our atmosphere. The fashion industry generates 8 to 10% of all global carbon emissions. That is more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. The math is almost unbelievable when you look at it. Environmental data shows that just one single ultra-fast fashion company emits as much carbon pollution annually as the entire country of Lebanon. Just think about that. One brand matching the footprint of an entire nation.
So, what happens when we inevitably throw these cheap clothes away after just a few wears? Let's take a trip to the Kontamonto market in Accra, Ghana. Every week, 15 million items of used clothing flood into this market. The locals actually call it Obroni Wawu, which translates to dead white man's clothes, because originally they just couldn't fathom that living people would throw away so many perfectly good garments. The influx is so severe now that on the beaches of Accra, there's literally a 6-foot-high, densely packed layer of discarded synthetic fashion just suffocating the coastline. It all comes down to this ultimate, devastating imbalance. We're basically trading a fleeting dopamine hit, a garment we wear maybe 7 to 10 times, for centuries of toxic legacy. Because 89% of that textile waste in places like Ghana and the Atacama is synthetic plastic, it is going to take over 200 years to decompose. 2 centuries of microplastics and toxic off-gassing, all for a t-shirt that was trendy from maybe 2 weeks.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. The narrative is finally starting to shift and the world is waking up. The United Nations has officially declared fast fashion an environmental and social emergency. Governments are actually stepping in now. France recently passed a historic anti-fast fashion law, slapping a €5 tax on highly polluting items. The European Union has strictly banned companies from destroying their own unsold clothes, which was a sneaky tactic brands used to manufacture scarcity. And by 2027, the EU is rolling out digital product passports, meaning every single garment is going to have a trackable, totally transparent environmental history.
But listen, we don't have to wait for politicians to act. We have the power to dismantle this system today, and it starts right in our own closets. It begins with the 30-wear test. Before you buy anything, ask yourself honestly, am I going to wear this 30 times? If not, put it right back. Next, we need to aggressively normalize outfit repeating. The idea that wearing the same clothes is somehow shameful is a complete lie invented just to take your money. And finally, actually care for your clothes. Fix dropped hems, sew those buttons back on, and realize that you really don't need to wash your jeans after every single use.
And when you absolutely do need to buy something new, you've got to know your materials. Stay far, far away from Tier C. Those are the virgin plastics like polyester and nylon that pollute our oceans and literally end up in our blood. Tier B, things like conventional cotton and recycled polyester, is slightly better but still carries heavy water and processing footprints. Tier A, featuring organic cotton and Tencel, is a really solid, sustainable choice. But whenever possible, you want to aim for Tier S. Fabrics like organic hemp and linen are absolutely incredible. Hemp requires almost zero water, it doesn't need toxic pesticides, it naturally regenerates the soil it grows in, and it's 100% biodegradable. We have been totally conditioned to believe that fashion has to be fast, it has to be disposable, and it has to be cheap. But we've seen the dead rivers, we've seen the suffocated beaches, and those massive mountains of waste in the driest desert on Earth. The true cost of that $5 t-shirt is being paid by the environment, by marginalized communities around the globe, and ultimately by our own health.
By changing how we shop, we have the power to stop this toxic machine dead in its tracks. So I want to leave you with this final thought to consider. Next time you're tempted by a cheap, trendy t-shirt, who is actually paying the price? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.